Hi guys, I'm Lisa and I'm back with another video. Today it's time for my September wrap-up. In September I managed to read 16 books and a total of 4,875 pages with an average of 305 pages per book. And in terms of genres, I read 1 book that was a sci-fi, 4 books that were fantasies, 2 books that were contemporaries, 2 books that were thrillers, 4 urban fantasies, 1 magical realism, 1 horror book, and 1 mystery. In terms of formatting, 3 of them were hardcovers, 1 of them was a mass market, 2 of them were ebooks, 9 of them were audios, and 1 of them was a graphic novel. And in terms of age group, 8 of them were adult, 5 of them were young adult, and 3 of them were middle grades. In terms of the year they were published, 2 of them were published in the 80s, 4 of them were published in the 2000s. 1 of them was published in 2010. 2 of them were published in 2014. 1 was published in 2015. 3 were published in 2017. And I read apparently 3 books are published in 2019 without realizing that. I mean, I don't tend to read very many newer releases, but I guess I did. In terms of page length, 1 of them was less than 100 pages. Then I read 2 books between 100 and 199 pages, 4 books between 200 and 299 pages, and then I read 7 books between 300 and 399 pages, and then I read 2 books between 500 and 599 pages. The longest book that I read in September was Christine by Stephen King, which comes in at 526 pages, and the shortest book that I read in September was The Grownups by Gillian Flynn, which is only 64 pages. In terms of my series versus standalone reading, I read 5 books that were standalones and 11 books that were part of a series. And of those 11 books, 5 of them I started and 6 of them were part of a series I'd already started, so were continuations. In terms of my ratings, I had 1 book that was a 1 star, 1 book that was a 3 star, 1 book that was a 3.5 stars, and then I read 11 books that were 4 stars, 2 books that were 5 stars. So with an average of 3.84 stars. So a little lower than last month, but I did have a 1 star there that dragged down the average rating a lot. Apparently a lot of 4-star reads as well. Anyway, let's get into what I did read and what my thoughts were on them. Overall, I'm actually pretty happy with how much I read in September. I was very I read everything that I had on my audio TBR, but my physical read TBR was not as successful. I'm not saying that I did badly, but I definitely could have done better. But I focused a little bit more on some library books that had to be turned in, so I guess it's okay. The first book that I finished in September was Heather the Totality by Matthew Weiner, and this is by far my least favorite book that I've read over this past year. It was terrible. I don't recommend it for anyone. It read a little bit like a movie script or a synopsis of a movie or something like that, when you outlay how you want the movie to go, but without actually putting in any dialogue, without any real plot depth or anything. It was just done very badly, and I don't understand why this was published at all. The only reason I can guess is that he is a famous person already, so his name alone will probably sell a lot of copies, but I feel like that is not okay that the publishers decided to publish that anyway. They should have at least had an editor say, you need to do something about this one because it's terrible. And it shows on Goodreads. It has a really, really low average rating as well, so I'm definitely not alone in thinking this. So yeah, I definitely recommend you not picking this one up ever. The next thing that I finished was Night Dragons Finish Last by Rachel Aaron. This is the first book in a series that I've currently forgotten what it's called. But it follows this boy who is part of this clan of dragons, and he is the weakest link in this clan. So one day they decide that he is to be removed from the clan, so as not to be such a burden, and he has to fulfill some trials in order to be accepted back into the clan again, and has to do some tasks in a human world. And it was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely interested in seeing what's gonna happen next. And I'm really happy it was recommended to me, because I don't think it's one that I've seen anyone talk about otherwise than those two people who recommended it. And so I'm definitely happy I read it, and I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Suspicious Minds by Gwenda Bond. This is the first book in those Stranger Things companion books that are set in the Stranger Things universe, but they are sort of prequel stories to the first and before what happened before the first season of the TV show happens. But in case of this one, I won't recommend you reading it before until after season 2, because this one follows it. It tells the story of Eleven's mother. I'm not going to go into more in depth with it, because if you haven't watched the TV show, it could be very spoilery. But if you have watched the TV show, then you know that there's definitely something about her story, and how did she get into that situation that she ended up in. That's why I'm saying that you shouldn't read this until after you've watched the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, because the reveals about what happened to Eleven's mother doesn't get revealed before the 2nd season in Stranger Things. So I feel like it will be spoilery if you read it first and then watch that afterwards. I don't know, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was definitely a great, well-told story, and I was intrigued. It had some crazy moments, some scary moments, but it was not as it lacked a little bit of the oomph, you know, the strangeness or the other thing that happens in Stranger Things. It didn't have a lot of that creepiness. It was more about the lab and the lab people, which makes sense. But definitely that's why I don't give it a full 5 stars, because I sort of lacked something that's part of the TV show. But otherwise, I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought it was if you are a fan of the Stranger Things universe, then definitely consider checking it out, because I think it was definitely an interesting story. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And the next thing that I finished was The Grownups by Gillian Flynn. This is a short novella that was originally published in the anthology Rogues, which is it was edited by George R. R. Martin and Gardner Dozois. But she decided to publish this story on its own, I guess because it would sell more, I don't know. But it's definitely a really well-told short story. I thought the length was pretty perfect. I don't think you could have changed a lot in that, and it was definitely creepy. It had some strange vibes. I don't want to tell you a lot about the plot of this, but because it's so short, and I feel like if you go into what it's about, you'll more or less be spoiling the whole story. But it features ghosts, so I thought it was interesting, and I definitely enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Crimson Eyes by Eleanor McNeil. This is the first book in a new urban fantasy series. I received this arc from the author in exchange for an honest review, and this series follows this girl who is a demon hunter, and one day she loses her soul to this demon, so she doesn't have a soul, but she is also part something else. I've forgotten what it was called, but she has wings, which makes her able to fly, obviously. So she's not completely human either, but she meets these 2 humans, or elementals, I think you call them that. They have sort of powers on their own as well, and one of them is possessed by a demon, so that's sort of how she gets in touch with them. And then they find out there's a lot more to the world as first thought. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I was really happy to see Lauren writing some urban fantasy, because urban fantasy is a genre that I enjoy a lot, which I think I've mentioned it quite often, and I thought she did a pretty good job. And I'm definitely intrigued to see what's going to happen in the future. And it features obviously a lot of different demons, because it's sort of a world where there's like parallel universes, or whatever you call it, portals into the demon world. Sort of if you think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I guess, where they also have different places that are more actively accessible to the demon world. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Which reminded me, I've actually received an arc of the second book, so I should definitely try and get to that one. I haven't requested that or anything like that. She just sent it to me, so I only noticed it recently. So I'm definitely going to try and see if I can fit it into my reading soon. The next thing that I finished was Forbidden Falls by Robin Carr. This is the next book. I feel like it's the 8th book in the Virgin River series, and this series follows a bunch of different characters that you keep looking into their lives in each of the books, but with every book there's also a new couple introduced or new romance introduced, and in this one it was a romance between a pastor and the pastor's assistant, and I found the romance not really good, but there were elements of it that I enjoyed as usual. There was some part of it that discussed a single our main character was a single mom, and she had some issues with the custody issues with her 2 kids. Her ex-husband was very manipulative and made everyone believe that she was not capable of looking after the kids, even though she was. So that part of it, the story, I enjoyed, but all of the other elements of the story I didn't enjoy very much. So for me right now, I'm just reading them to get through my stacking the series. I have 1 more book from this series on my list this year, but I'm not super enjoying them, so I'm on a 2.5 to 3 stars, I guess. I think I'll put it down for 3 stars. But next year I'm definitely not going to put that many. I just want to make a little bit of progress in it because I do want to try and finish it, and I've heard that the later books gets better, but it's been a bit of a drag getting there. The next one I read was Murder in Little Italy by Victoria Thompson. This is also the 8th book in a series, and this is the 8th book in the Gaslight Mystery series, which I'm really enjoying. As I've mentioned it quite often before, this series follows widower Sarah Brandt, who works as a midwife, and also Detective Sergeant Malloy from the New York Police Department, and is set in the late 1800s. Sarah has a tendency to get into these investigations because they always seem to happen either in her family's group of people, or because she is a midwife, and a lot of it involves pregnant ladies or something like that. And in this case, we actually investigating the murder of a woman who died right after childbirth. So at first it might seem that it was the childbirth that was the reason for it, but it turns out that it was in fact something else, because there are evidence that suggests that someone murdered her. So they go into an investigation on that, and yeah, and she was a really young person, only 17. They've only been married for a couple of months, her and her husband, but she's only known her husband for 7 months. So how did it happen when the baby came just the right time? So there's definitely some speculation about whether the husband did it, or the parents did it, or who did it. But yeah, I continue to enjoy these, and I keep looking forward to reading on them. So I definitely suggest them. I think the audios are great. I really enjoy the narration of the audios. Yeah, I gave it another 4 stars. The next thing that I finished was Rosa Viola by Gry Kabel Jensen. This is a Danish fantasy. In English it would be called Roses and Violets. This is a 2019 release, and it follows these 4 different girls who are all starting on this boarding school called Rosenholm, which is a very posh seeming boarding school. In Denmark we have 2 types of boarding schools. We have boarding schools for the rich and posh people, the one you know about from England and stuff, but we also have boarding schools that are more for the general middle class. We have a lot of boarding schools like that, and I went to one of those, so that's the difference. But we call them 2 different things in Danish, but if you translate them, they both suggest boarding school. So because it's sort of the same concept, more or less, the whole thing that you're living at this school and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, this follows these 4 different girls as they go to this school, and it's an all-girl boarding school. they come to the school not knowing anything about it. On the outside world, you don't know anything about this school at all. And they come to this school, all 4 of them, and are being introduced to Rosenholm. Rosenholm is a school for people who have magical abilities, and they are all related to different things in life. Like we have one who is able to sense what other people are feeling. We have one that is able to see the spirits of the dead, and we have one who is able to do blood magic, and I forgot what the 4th one was doing, but we definitely have a lot of different type of magics working on the school. Our main character, who's able to see spirits, has a hard time sleeping because every time she tries to go to sleep, sort of spirit is entering her dreams and trying to, or waking her up, or keeps bothering her. And so she doesn't get a lot of sleep, and because of that, the 4 girls decide to do a sort of seance, trying to figure out what the spirit wants, and this sort of spins this whole thing into work, or into motion, if you will. And I really ended up enjoying it. There was definitely a lot of things I enjoyed. The atmosphere was really great, and I thought a lot of the characters were interesting. The only thing that was, I think there were a couple of places where it was very usual, general YA fantasy, with there was a forbidden romance between a teacher and a student, which I didn't really care for. And there were some ways that the characters interacted, or like how they looked at other people before knowing them and judged them. And I know that happens all the time, but I like when authors try to avoid that kind of toxic stuff. But yeah, but I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing that I read was Alana, the First Adventure by Tamora Pierce. This is the first book in the Song of the Lioness Quartet, and it's the second time I read this. I enjoyed it quite a lot more on a second read. There are definitely things that I didn't pick up on the first time I read it, so I was happy about that. It follows her main character Alana, who is a twin. She has always grown up wanting to be a knight. She knew she was good at fighting. She just knew this was her calling. But she had one problem, that she was a woman or girl and not a boy. So one day she goes to this knight apprenticeship disguised as a boy called Alan. And yeah, this starts off this story. There are definitely a lot of things that I enjoyed about this one. Considering it is from the beginning of the 80s, this was written, I think that it holds up pretty well. It has a lot of good messages, and the friendships in here are well written. Both Alana's friendships with her own age group ish, but also like teachers and mentors and other people around her that she meets. She's good at not judging people before they come to know them. There's also a bit of bullying in this one, which I always find a little bit triggering. But I did enjoy this book as a whole, and I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen in the next coming books. I did a live discussion with some other people who've also been reading it along with me, and it was fun yesterday, and I will try and leave that up here if you feel like watching it. It's quite spoilery, so if you haven't read it, I won't suggest watching it, but if you have, maybe you would want to see it. But yeah, it's definitely not too late for you to join the read-along. They are fairly short books, so maybe if you have time in October, you can catch up and join us for the second live show in November. So yeah, I hope that you will do that. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Wild Beauty by Anne-Maria McLemore. This is a standalone book, and it is sort of a magical realism book. This is a story about... It is told from 2 different perspectives. One of them is from a girl's perspective who's part of this family who has a sort of curse or something surrounding them. The fact that every time they fall in love with a boy or someone, they disappear. And then we have a boy's perspective, we follow who wakes up and can't remember who he is, but he knows he's supposed to be there, and he becomes accepted into this family. Even though they're a little reluctant about it, they can feel that there's a purpose behind it, that they have to accept him, and sort of like that. And it spins this story into action, I guess. It's difficult to explain what this book is about specifically, but I did enjoy it. I thought the writing was beautiful. I really enjoyed the writing. It was very atmospheric and whimsical and fairy tale-like. I definitely enjoyed that. But there was something about the plot itself that I didn't love completely. There was something I lacked a little bit. I think it lacked a little bit, but otherwise I pretty much enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then next thing I read was Ondskabens Engel, or The Angel of Evil, by Kenneth B. Anderson. This is the 4th book in the Great Devil War, Den Store Djævlekrig series. This series follows Philip. Philip is just a normal boy living in Denmark, and he one day saves a boy who's a bully, who was supposed to die on this day, but he saves him and dies, and accidentally goes to hell, because the devil was dying of a disease, so he needs another one to take over his job when he's gone. So he has to get an apprentice to teach another one in devil's acts, and that's going to be Philip. He only had one chance to get this one, so he has to make do what he has in Philip. And by now we're in the 4th book, so a lot of things have happened since then, and it's definitely getting darker, and there's a war going on between our devil and other demons and devils and stuff like that. It's difficult to explain, but it's definitely very intriguing. I'm so looking forward to seeing how this is all going to end up. There are some things happening in this one that definitely made me very much intrigued, and I didn't see that coming. That's something I really enjoy about his books, is that they're not predictable at all. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what will happen next. The next thing that I finished was Full Metal Alchemist Volume 12 by Hiromu Arakawa. This volume I also really enjoyed a lot. In the previous couple of volumes, I feel like there's been a lot of reveals happening, and I've really been intrigued to see what's gonna happen onwards, because like it takes so many different turns that I don't expect, and I love those stories, the volumes from this series that takes some background history into it. I feel like this is one of them, and the previous one was one as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what will happen to these characters in the coming books. It's definitely going a little bit darker, I think. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Oh, I also gave Ondskabens Engel 5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Christine by Stephen King. This is the next book I had to read in my Stephen King project. In Christine, we're following a few different characters, but our main characters are probably Arnie and Dennis. I feel like his name is Dennis. I keep forgetting. Dennis is the one that narrates the majority of the book, and he tells a story about how Arnie one day discovered this very, very old dingy car. And Arnie is a boy who has had a bit of some issues and troubles in life. He is the one that everyone bullies. He's the one that has not had it easy in life. He's good in school, and he also has a lot of skin issues, which makes it difficult for him to be accepted. But he does have a very good friend in Dennis, and Dennis instantly gets worried when he gets this car, because it changes him completely, and as time goes along it becomes more and more prominent, the changes that happens in him. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed this one. It was very interesting. It was definitely creepy at times. The character development was done well, as usual. I think that Stephen King writes really great characters, and the atmosphere was quite intense. But I don't think I didn't find it too scary. It was different, and yeah, I don't know what it was, but I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars because I overall really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like a favorite thing I've read by Stephen King. The next thing that I finished was Vision in Silver by Anne Bishop. This is the 3rd book in the other series, and the other series we're following Meg. Actually, we're following a bunch of characters, but it's set in this our sort of world, but where vampires, werewolves, shapeshifters, and elementals and stuff live alongside, or well, they live in smaller communities and controlled by them, and the humans and the others, they have a hard time agreeing on things. But we meet Meg. Meg is a blood prophet. Blood prophets can see visions when they cut themselves. So there are definitely triggers for self-harm, and it's very gory at times. So if you don't like those things, then you should consider just skipping this series. It is also a really slow-moving series. It sort of explores like day-to-day based stuff, like especially this one was insanely slow, also in terms of the fact that there was not a lot of plot going on, whereas I felt like even though the other 2 books were slow, I feel like the things that at least happened were interesting because they're very good at developing the characters. I didn't think that happened a lot in this one. Meg is quite innocent. She's been kept in captivity all this time, and she escapes that and ends up in the courtyard, where she takes up a job as a sort of human liaison thing, so that she's the one that talks to the humans when they come with deliveries, and they send out deliveries to the humans, sort of that face that they see, so that they don't see the wolves and stuff, who has a difficult time talking to humans, because they can be a little bit scary. But where we are now, the war between the others and the humans has definitely become a lot darker or greater. There's a movement that we know now known as the Humans First and Last movement that the humans did made, which means that everyone who supports the others, they will also get everything will be taken away from them, basically. Like, life will be made a lot harder because they actually they haven't chosen a side, because they don't automatically choose the humans no matter what. And on the other hand, the others has a difficult time about what to do about it, because they also know that they can't just go into a war because that will just make things even worse. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on, but I'm enjoying it. I didn't love it as much as I did with the other 2 books. But I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen in the next one, because I feel like the setup for the next one was pretty decent, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Eliza and the Monsters by Francesca Sapia. This is another standalone. It's a YA contemporary, and it follows our main character, Eliza. Eliza has created this webcomic series, but this webcomic series is extremely popular. It's the most popular webcomic there is, but no one knows that she is the person behind it, because she does this anonymously. One day, another boy comes to the school and starts at school, and she finds out that he is a really big fan of the webcomic that she's writing, and has actually been writing fan fiction about it. But she doesn't dare tell him that she is the creator behind this one, because she wants to keep the anonymity for a bit. She has anxiety about being with other people, about being in the spotlight, and about being social. So she is not the most talkative person, and all of the people that she does her interaction with are in the online community. I really enjoyed this one. I thought that it was handled pretty well. I thought the discussions about the online community was interesting, considering I'm part of it. I thought that was funny to see. I didn't love it completely. There were some things about it I didn't, but I thought that the representation about the anxiety part was done well. and very real, but there are other parts of it that just didn't connect completely with me. But I ended up giving it 3.5 stars to a 3.75. So yeah, but I enjoyed it overall, and I gave, as I said, gave it 3.5 stars. The last and final thing that I read over in September was Hex Ian's Forbandelse, or The Curse of the Bane, as the English title is, by Joseph Delaney. This is the second book in The Last Apprentice, or the series is called The Last Apprentice, or something else. I will put the other name of the series down here. The story, we follow Thomas. Thomas is the seventh son of seventh son, which means that he is a witch hunter or a spook. He is the last apprentice there is going to be in of these, and because he is this apprentice, he has magical abilities that lets him see things that other people can't see. So sort of things like spirits and stuff. And in this one, there's this curse surrounding this our witch hunter, a spook. But yeah, there's a curse, sort of curse surrounding him. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. I'm not gonna go into spoilers about what it's about this specifically, but one of the things that I thought was interesting is how the magic changed and how we found things out about his mother, that, I mean, there was something about her in the first one, but I liked seeing what happened with her in the second one. We got more knowledge about her person. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, overall enjoyed it. I think it reminds me, I've said it before, but it reminds me a little bit of the Devil's Apprentice books. I think it's the atmosphere, like it's a little bit darker, but also a little bit humorous at the same time. But yeah, I feel like they are similar in that way. And I definitely enjoyed it, and so I gave it 4 stars. So yeah, those were all the things that I read in September. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of this book, what you thought of them, if you did, and if you're planning on picking any of the books up. Also, let me know if you have read anything interesting this past month that you'd like to recommend to me, because I always would like to hear your recommendations. I do tend to pick them up if they interest me as well. So yeah, don't be afraid to add any recommendations down below. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Goodbye!